One of the hardest things to do is to not only forgive other people, but I believe one of the hardest things to do is to forgive ourselves. Oftentimes we don't realize what we prevent ourselves from being able to accomplish, or how many times we've allowed people to hinder our thoughts and hinder our progression and the move of God on our life. And we find ourselves only going so far, and it feels like there is some type of gravitational force that's pulling us back. And we know that there is a greater person on the inside of us, but it's hard to uncover that person because it's so much pain and so much hurt and so much unforgiveness and so much disappointment. And the truth of the matter is that many of us are justified in what we feel, that they did something wrong to us. And sometimes we feel like we're weak if we let go of the pain and if we let go of the hurt. And sometimes it's hard to admit that we made a bad decision and we trusted somebody that we shouldn't have trusted, or we allowed somebody into a vulnerable place that they shouldn't have been allowed in. And because of that, we have built up these walls, and we don't want to be open anymore, and we don't want to be vulnerable anymore, and we have started to stop trusting God in these difficult areas. But maybe it's the fact that we are unforgiving that's holding us up from the breakthrough that we really need. Maybe some of us are sick in our body because we have not forgiven. Maybe some of us are feeling like we are about to lose our ever-loving mind because we haven't forgiven somebody. Sometimes we go through things in life and we don't understand why the Lord will allow it to happen. But God wants to know, do you love enough to forgive past the place of pain? Do you love enough to say, God, I trust you in spite of it? And do you love enough to say, I'm not going to have a spirit of payback, and I'm not going to repay the person that hurt me, and I'm not going to wish that God will send fire and brimstone, and I'm not going to pray on their downfall, but I'm going to ask God to lift them up, to change their hearts and to change my heart as well. And I realize now that God, you will forgive me based off of on how I forgive other people. So Lord, help us today to be able to be free to love and free to forgive those people that have wounded us in multiple areas and multiple times. And it's not that we haven't forgiven them once, but how do you deal with life when you got to forgive somebody over and over again? God, we thank you that you told Peter that it's not about the amount of times that you have to forgive, but it's about the heart that's attached to it. Because after you forgive, then you'll understand that there is power to do things that's intangible, to see things that's invisible. He said, after you forgive, that you can bind stuff on earth and it'll be bound in heaven. And after you forgive, you can loose stuff on earth and it'll be loosed in heaven. And maybe we haven't seen the real miracles of God and the real power of binding and loosing is because we have not bound up unforgiveness and loose forgiveness in our own life. We have not released the hurt and released the tears and released the pain and finally said, God, okay, I admit it, it hurt, and I would love to hold on to a grudge, and God, I admit it, I don't appreciate that it happened, and God, I admit it now that it didn't feel good and it don't feel good right now, but in order for me to go into my purpose and my destiny and to go to the next level, I gotta forgive somebody else. And so God, today our prayer is help us to forgive other people, but most importantly, Lord, help us to forgive ourselves. Help us to forgive ourselves.